Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, indeed. Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of Shop Talk. I'm Anthony of the Bloody Point, and this match is between myself and Freetipscout, who everybody in the community must know. We set up this mirror match and using the private in-game matchmaking system. Very generous of him to take me up on my offer, and I had something different planned for this episode of Shop Talk, something talking a bit more specifically about particular cards. But in light of today's patch and this match and another match I'll show you as well, Augencore related, I wanted to just speak generally on Augencore, the parallel itself and what it does and how it can be played. So in this particular match, I'm using a deck I cooked up that has a particular angle, which you'll see as the match plays out. I'll discuss that in a bit. And you know, one thing about Augencore that's great is that there's just so many different ingredients that you can cook with, be it the upgrades or the units, the effects and interactions with the bank, and so many different ways to make a deck. And you know, I've been watching Freetip in preparation for the patch. He's been theory crafting and making some decks, and I've been watching other people do that as well. In fact, as of this recording, Dmoney's cooking an Augencore deck right now. The patch has really motivated a lot of people to take another look at Augencore, and I think that's great. You know, we do see Augencore on the ladder and in tournaments, but it's not really Augencore. It's usually a Uni workshop deck, so it's not quite the same thing. And I think Augencore, the pure Augencore deck, is one that uses Augencore cards and takes advantage of the focuses of the deck, or of the parallel rather, which are, you know, upgrades and so on. So it's great to see with the patch going live and the changes to a lot of Augencore cards, so many people taking another look at the parallel, and I think we're going to see some really interesting things come out of that process as more people are looking at the parallel and cooking things up. And cooking is really the essence of Augencore. You know, cooking with Augencore, the title of this video, sounds like a cooking show, and really could be, because when you're playing Augencore, you're constantly cooking, you're constantly looking at ways to get that advantage, because Augencore is such a how shall I say, low tier deck, just in the context of the meta and just the way it works. It's underpowered in a lot of ways. You do have to squeeze every last bit of flavor out of the deck, and that's something that I see a lot of people doing. It's something I tried to do with this deck that you're seeing here. So this deck that I'm running is essentially a delivery system for the Vox Tech Drones card, which is a new Aftermath card, which does 2 damage every time it applies to a unit. Now the damage is random, so you're at the mercy of RNG, but a lot of Augencore cards involve RNG. Indeed, even the hacker deck does. So that's something that you're not going to escape. You know, it's part of a TCG with the drawing of cards. So the objective here for me is to get as many units on the field that have salvage, and just to keep passing that Vox Tech along. So you see, kill the unit, I salvage it, put it on another unit, it does its 2 damage. Now I got super lucky. I've played this deck a lot, and more often than not it seems to go face, which isn't really helpful. But in this case, you know, I watched the recording, and the kill count on that one Vox Tech was pretty high. It was kind of crazy. So got really good value out of that. But that's the nature of the deck. So you're just transferring it from one salvage unit to another. Because the units that are dying are upgraded, and you're playing an Arak deck, you're going to get these bots, which allows you to do other things. And when you throw Memento in there, you really have the opportunity to get some damage built up. So, you know, towards the end of the game, you're going to be in a position to hopefully overwhelm whatever the opponent is doing. And you'll see how this plays out. It was an interesting match in that respect. I did watch this after my after the match and preparing for this recording. I did watch it from Free Tips' perspective. In fact, I'll link to that. He was streaming at the time, so I'll link to his VOD on Twitch, and you'll be able to do that as well. I was surprised at some of the decisions that he made. They weren't quite the things I would have done, but that's one of the great things about Augencore, is that even with the same, pieces, the same cards and upgrades, there's just so many different ways to play the parallel that it's really cool to watch somebody else who's playing the Paragon or Parallel and see what they do and learn from it, and that's part of the cooking process. And this is an exciting time because so many people, more than usual, are making decks and playing Augencore that I suspect some stuff that I haven't thought of is going to come out, and I'm really excited for that. So as you can see, I have killed my Scrapper, which allows me to pass Voxtech along, which will do another 2 damage. Again, I get really lucky just going to the field, to the units on the field. And the kill switch as well was helpful, and that's going to come into play here. You'll see later on. One of the great things about Augencore is that you can, it's from your hand and upgrades from your hand. You can do it from the waist, and there's many ways to do that. So you can see the kill switch there, which I have a Scrapper in my hand, so I'll be able to recover that. And you can do the same thing with the bank. There are ways to pull cards from the bank, whether it's upcycled or the charge mechanic. You can do it with John's Tactical Provisioner. You can do it with a few of the other cards. A lot of uni cards can do it as well. Okay, so I was worried here that this was going to be something like an AOP, but it's Sesmir, and Sesmir is generally a problem. But I do know that I have the kill switch handy, so it won't be a problem for long. So I'm not too worried, but it's a really good card. I did watch a match Free Tip had when he was streaming earlier versus Earthen, I believe, and he got such amazing results out of his Sesmir. He had 2 on the field at one point. It was crazy. It was like a 7-2, and then he just pulled a bunch of other vehicles. It was nuts. Like the great thing about Augencore is that the RNG is exciting in a match because you're not guaranteed. Look, you're not playing a meta deck like a Sippy, for example, where you're guaranteed to win pretty much if you don't mess up. And with Augencore, you can win, but it has to be the result of a good cook when you made the deck, well conceived, it's dynamic, it can handle all the different situations. But also there's the RNG angle, and seeing how things play out in terms of your draws. If you get a bad first hand, you're kind of screwed. Conversely, if you get a good first hand, especially if you're going second, where you can design the hand, you can pretty much be fairly confident, depending on who you're facing, that you've won just based on your first configuration. And then you have the RNG from the following draws, and then cards like Sesmir, where you have the units that it creates. There's a few other cards which involve pulling random upgrades, pulling from your deck to draw upgrades, depending on what happens to be in the top few cards of your deck. There's just so many things to do. And it really is an exciting, parallel, not just to play, but to cook with. Because you see all these new interactions every time there's a new card that comes out, whether it's an expansion pack or the Battle Pass card. You have to reevaluate the parallel and reevaluate your deck, because it'll be able to do new things. In fact, next month's card, I believe, is going to be an Augencore card, the Battle Pass card, that is. So that's going to change things up as well, and in combination with today's patch and the modifications to existing Augencore cards, we're going to see a lot of cool stuff being cooked up, and I'm super excited about that. Okay, so this could be a problem for me at this point. I'm looking, at a lot of defenders, and I don't have a lot of units on the field to play with, and not much in my hand. This Triumph is interesting. I thought about using it because it has the new ability to create 2 1/1 nanobots, and it allowed me to pull something from my deck, but I wasn't feeling it, and you'll see why in a moment. It's just so fun to play other Augencore. In the other match I had, I also had an Eric opponent where I was playing my usual workshop deck, which I have modified slightly, and you'll see that manifest in the match. And you just never know. Like, I had no clue through most of the match if I was gonna win or not. See, this is you see why now. I was going to use the Triumph. I wanted to use it because it had been modified in the patch, and I wanted to show that off. But there's no way I'm banking this Tetsu. Just such a good card. I can't overclock it, but it was still worth using. So here's the problem with these defenders, is that he can choose which defender to use between the 3, and that allows him to control essentially what happens. You know, whether my card gets destroyed, and then I can make use of the salvage and pass the memento on, or the Vox Tech. So it's a good situation for him. But I do have the kill switch, so it is something that I'm going to be able to deal with eventually. And the health are you know, it's 30 HP on his side and 24 on mine, so I'm in a decent enough position to not have to worry too much long term. And with what I have on the field, especially that Tetsu was a big pull, it's going to help me a lot. So the Sesamir's gone, and the problem is the unit he drew is a nasty one. I do have enough on the board, I think, to deal with it, at least at this point. And I get another scrap heap, which means I'm going to be able to recover something from the waste. So not too terrible, as long as I don't lose the field entirely, which is possible. There was an upcycled which was used to pull Sesamir. I don't know if there's one for AOP, but I have all upgraded units, so AOP wouldn't really help him that much. That's another thing about this particular deck configuration, is that it's good. You know, the idea is you're always supposed to have an upgraded, your units upgraded, which helps you against AOP, and then the Eric passive, where when upgraded units die, it generates the bots, also very good. So things are looking okay for me, at least based on what I know that I have coming. This kill switch is going to go into the waste at some point, even if it may not be on this next turn, and then I'm going to be able to recover it again. I still have the Vox Tech in play, which could give me a clutch unit destruction if I'm lucky again. You know, as you can see, I haven't gone to face with it yet, which is really unusual. And all the testing I did, it went to face, seemed like 70% of the time, which is okay, but not really something that's going to help you win matches when you're looking to clear the board. So especially versus something like Sippy, which is one of the things I had in mind when cooking this deck.
Protect me, you fool.
Ready to fire!
Okay, so no assault first, which means the additional damage wasn't generated, so that was good for me. And now I have a decision to make. I feel like this was a mistake. I probably should have put it on one of the bots, but I don't think it's going to hurt me long term. Okay, so there goes the defender. So here's what I was talking about. I should have put the memento, I think, on the bot, but I chose to put it on the evasive unit, which really wasn't necessary given there's no defenders, but I was just trying to plan ahead, because the defenders were causing me some trouble and I wanted to avoid that. Okay, so this draw is super interesting. So this mechanized card is something I re-added to my deck, or added to my deck for the first time in the time I've been playing. And, you know, my
Ready to
I have an
fire.
OTK, turn 5 OTK deck, which uses, you can use Cath for double damage, Repeater for double damage, but I also realized Mechanized can be used to generate 2 times the damage on the unit. And it's something that, you know, oh yeah, here we go. So, recovering the Vox Tech. I don't have a unit with salvage, so I'm not going to be able to continue passing it. So, good job, little drone. And then the kill switch, that gets rid of that.
Impressive.
And I'm going to pull it out again. So we're in really good shape facing what we see here. We're still, you know, there's still potentially upcycle play because of the energy, but I take away both of those units, so that removes that threat, and that's pretty much the only thing I could have been worried about here. So interesting to look, if you look at the damage, I actually have 22 if I use the mechanized, because the 8, well technically the 9, I use the nanobot to buff the 8-9 unit, and then I can reapply that through mechanized. So yeah, GG's, that's Shop Talk. Thanks for watching.